So I've been thinking a lot about improvement and what that actually looks like and what that means in terms of photography, creativity, art, and how do we either measure meaningful improvement? What does that even mean? Is it even necessary for art? I think these are questions we don't ask ourselves. I think these are just things that we assume are essential, that we need to be improving. And I want to question that a little bit today and think a little bit more about what is actually important. Is art meant to be sort of objectively measured in terms of improvement, right? Like what does it mean to have a photo that has improved or to have one photo be better than another? I don't know if I have the answers to these questions, but I think it's important to talk about them as creators, and I think I have a take or at least a perspective that may be helpful and healthy for us as creators. So the first thing that comes to mind for me with this is, at what point does wanting our photos to improve or rating our photos as good or bad actually hindering or taking the fun out of the actual act of doing it? And I think we can forget that being creative and making art and taking photos in my opinion, shouldn't be about whether it's good or bad. It should be about the process itself. Does it make us feel good? Did it help me heal today? Did it spark joy for me? And I think those questions are more important than, is my composition better? And at the same time, we want the things that we create to be beautiful and we want to see them get better. And I think that's okay to kind of hold both of those things and sort of say, where is the balance? How can we enjoy actually doing the thing without this idea of improvement coming in and sort of wrecking the fun of it? I think one way that we can stop it from wrecking the fun of creating itself is not being so hard on our photography and not making it this like game to make our photos so much better or sort of obsessing about it or that we need to be improving. And I think that's something just about improvement in general that we often forget. I think our society has programmed us to think that if we're plateauing at all or if we're regressing, that is somehow a bad thing and that somehow our photography isn't going to get better or our creativity isn't going to get better. And I beg to differ. I think that when we are up against plateauing or regression, that those are moments to find resilience in the craft and use those opportunities actually to reevaluate, dig deeper, or just simply rest. Sometimes, people talk about writer's block and creative block. I think creative block and writer's block are like actually important. And I think that we think that we need to get out of it, but I think it's actually just our system, our nervous system, our bodies, our creative intuition, whatever you want to call it, is prompting us and telling us to rest. And rest is important for not only photographers, but creativity. So all of this to say, I am going to be talking about composition tips in this video. And the reason I'm bringing this up, which might be counterintuitive to the things I will be talking about and explaining in this video, I'm setting this frame specifically because I want to make it clear that just because I'm providing these tips doesn't mean you should rigidly adhere to them, doesn't mean your photography is bad. If anything, what I want to do is just provide a different perspective. I think if we can reframe improvement or making your photos better to, this is how I would compose this shot, this is how I see this, or this is my perspective on this photo. I think that empowers us as artists and takes the objectivity of measuring whether it's a good photo back to each individual person. Art is subjective, always.
And if we can remember that, creating will always be fulfilling. Stick around for these next composition tips.
You see this house? It is super cute, and this tree has a very similar hue. You can't see it very well with my iPhone camera, but the hue is very similar, and it really brings out the color in the house. There's a lot for me to put in the frame, right? So I was standing originally somewhere over there, but I was like, you know what? Let's back up. Let's see how we can get this in the frame. Why don't I try to frame it so that what you're seeing is, this is the clear subject, but then you have the van kind of blocking this sort of ugly green like fence in this weird tent. What if I use the van to frame it, because it's got a beautiful blue, and that blue really complements this yellow here, and then you can just move the frame up, and then the frame that you have is the trees, the green, and then you have the blue, which just adds a little pop of color because it matches this blue sky, and then you have all the greens and the yellows, and all of it just comes together really nicely. So I still wasn't done taking photos of this house because it is just too cute. I was like, there's two vans here, and they're kind of creating this pinch point here where the subject is very clear, it's the house, and then you still have this framing of the trees here. And I got kind of lucky, and there's people that live at this house, obviously. And I saw somebody walking by, and they got in the frame here, and it was perfect. I mean, I don't know yet because I haven't quite looked at the photo close enough, but I think he was in the frame well enough. I'm gonna have to see and check it out later, but here's what I got. Okay, here was another tricky one. I really wanted to highlight these mountains, and I was like, how do I do that? Because from way over there where I was standing, it looked so pretty, and I was just like, how am I gonna capture those mountains? And I kind of wanted to do it just the mountains. So I was like, these vans are doing an interesting thing. They almost seem to mirror what's the mountain. Like you have this long bus here, kind of creates this portion, and then you've got these three here that sort of feel like they parallel that portion of the mountain, and then you have this tree that sort of cuts off this portion here. And so I just sort of framed it up so you just had that, and there's the photo. I really want this to be in portrait mode so that I can get the trees. So what I did here is I made sure that I included the top of those trees, and then framed this at the top, or framed that branch at the very top. But it's, I don't know how I feel about it. It's backlit, and yeah, I might have to mess around with this one. Okay, so this one's tricky. You see this moon, this beautiful half moon there. I loved the way that the trees are making a leading line to the moon, and it's almost like it is another palm tree, which I think is pretty cool. But if we back up here, you know, there's a lot of trees here, and so I was like, at first wanting to include these two, but there's just this weird awkward space here, and I was like, I don't like that. And I think it would be more convincing to have, you know, you have 5 plus the 6th there. It's an interesting number combination. But anyways, I had to frame it. I ideally would like to frame it something like this, and I'm hoping that's what I can get. I also wouldn't be mad if there was this in the corner there to also kind of add an additional frame, but I may also need to, I might even move that in Photoshop it, move it a little closer. But anyways, I was a little farther back away, and because I wanted the moon to be sort of more directly like in that line there, to be totally in a line, but I had to move forward in order to get it just right. So this is what it looks like.
I'm doing a voiceover for this one because the original audio was too noisy, it wasn't any good. So I liked the light that was shining through and wanted to catch a subject being backlit. So I saw this palm tree here and decided to use it as a frame to cut off the rest of the street to make a cleaner image without all the visual noise distracting from the subject. And thankfully I got lucky and caught a few different subjects in the frame.
Okay, so here's one more trick. So this needle, I couldn't get a very good shot, in my opinion, between those palm trees, but I'm here at my car and was about to go, but then I was like, you know what, let me try one more time to get this needle. And the frustrating thing was, gosh, that light is really harsh and it's coming in strong. As you can see, my phone is flaring like crazy. So the camera was too. But look at this little thing. I just came right here, blocked it off, and then took the shot. And that way I was able to bump up my exposure a little bit more. I was able to open up that aperture just a little bit more to let in more light. And then it made these colors here just brighten up a little bit more and look a lot cleaner. It wasn't as washed out because of that light coming in from the right side here. So anytime that happens to you, just, you know, move around, try to find something that can maybe block that light off. Obviously, if you want the light in the shot, that's totally fine. But in this case, I didn't want it in the shot because I just really wanted this blue sky to really shine through on the background of it and just really give your attention to the needle and not the light. Here's the shot. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you like it. I hope you learned something. I hope that I helped shift your perspective on something. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Kai. I'm an artist and a photographer.